Hi, everybody. My name is Mariette DiChristina, and I'm the Dean of the Boston University College of Communication. I'm also the parent of a recent BU grad. I'm super delighted to welcome you to today's Com Talks event, The Power of Netflix from a Non-Scripted Perspective. How does a platform go from being known for renting DVDs by mail to becoming the largest streaming platform in the world? And how does Netflix keep up with a fast evolving marketplace marked by seismic shifts from cable to streaming and mass absorption by conglomerates? Our expert panel will give you the inside view today. This event is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on COM's website and on its YouTube channel. When you have a question, please ask it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, not in the chat, please. We'll have plenty of time for your questions later. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers. First, let's say hello to Jenn Levy, who currently serves as VP Unscripted Originals and Acquisitions at Netflix. Having helped build the Unscripted initiative there, she's been instrumental in the development and production of some of the streaming service's most successful unscripted offerings so far, including Queer Eye, Nailed It, and Girls Incarcerated. Welcome there, Jenn. Hi there. Now let's say hello to Olivia LaRoche, who's currently manager of Unscripted Originals and Acquisitions at Netflix. Olivia got her start in radio and the music industry, working at celebrated companies such as Fenway Recordings and iTunes before turning her focus to TV. She joined Netflix back in 2014 as one of the first hires in the streaming giant's nonfiction series department. During her tenure, Olivia worked on a handful of the team's most captivating content, including Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, Nailed It, and You vs. Wild. She's also a Com grad in 2009. Great to have you here today, Olivia.
Thanks.
Now join me, please, in welcoming Antoni Porowski, who is a New York Times bestselling author and star of the Netflix hit series Queer Eye. As Queer Eye's food and wine expert, the self-taught cook brings with him a lifelong passion for food. Antoni's first cookbook, Antoni in the Kitchen, was released in fall 2019, debuting at #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. His next cookbook, Antoni Let's Do Dinner, is set for release in just a few days on September 14th. Hope you can get a copy. You can see Antoni in Netflix Emmy Award-winning series Queer Eye, which has won Outstanding Structured Reality Program for 3 consecutive years. In 2020, Antoni and his fellow Fab Five received their first Emmy nominations for Outstanding Hosts for a reality or competitive program. Coming up, Antoni is developing a feature film for Netflix with Blackish creator Kenya Barris, loosely based on Antoni's real-life dating experiences as a sexually fluid man, entitled Girls and Boys. Born in Canada to Polish immigrants, Antoni is an outspoken advocate for LGBTQ+ rights everywhere, especially in his family's native Poland. Welcome, Antoni.
Thank you for having me.
So awesome to have you. Now I'd love to welcome our moderator and then turn over the mic. Hello there, Ben Levine.
Hi.
Hi. He is television agent at leading entertainment and sports agency Creative Artists Agency, or CAA, as it's often known. Ben is based in New York in the New York office and represents many of the world's leading television personalities, including Antoni, whom we've met, Ayesha Curry, Martha Stewart, Leslie Jones, Dave Letterman, Titus Burgess, and Trevor Noah. Television producers including Jeff Tremaine, Silverback Films, and 0.0, and traditional actor clients including Melissa McCarthy, Glenn Close, Luke Wilson, Emma Roberts, and Vin Diesel, among others. Ben began his career at NBC Universal as an East Coast page. He joined CAA in 2015. He also graduated from Boston University with a degree in international relations and was even named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list in 2020. Congratulations on that, Ben, and thanks so much. Now I turn the virtual mic over to you.
Got it. Thank you for having me. I was just watching the number of participants leave the room as you were reading my bio. This is good. I'm so excited to be here. I love doing these things, and I love being back at BU. I'm not a Com grad, begrudgingly, but Olivia is. But I am a BU alum. So any way to still be a Terrier and be part of it is excellent. So this is a first for me. It's a first because Ant is my first client Jenn Levy was the first executive to ever yell at me on the phone.
The first of many, I'm sure. Sorry, go on.
And Olivia, well, I just felt bad for. So, here we are.
I really appreciate you taking pity on me, Ben. Thank you.
We're having fun, but we're going to start with you. We have so many
Oh boy.
questions.
Okay.
So here we go. Olivia, you're an OG Netflix employee.
Mhm.
You started early when the company and probably the unscripted department wasn't really quite yet in existence. So I guess my first question is, we're here today to talk about the power of Netflix, and we're talking about how the platform has grown from what it was to what it is today.
Mhm.
So I guess why, out of BU, can you tell us a little bit about the early days of Netflix and what that was like, and then also how you made your way into the Nonscripted group?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for including me in this. I'm just like very excited to be, and my mom is also so excited I'm doing this right now. She's like very, very impressed. So early days of Netflix, like the sort of corporate probably word we all use was, it was like the wild, wild west, but like in Beverly Hills. So just picture those two things coming together. No, it was definitely a experimental time, but in a really exciting way. And as Mariette said, I got my start in music and was eventually made my way to iTunes. And one of the reasons I got the job I did at Netflix was because I had some experience in digital distribution, working on the programming side at iTunes. And even though my focus was primarily on music, just having the knowledge of how to sell things and how to merchandise things digitally, which sounds like an old term now, but that's sort of how I referred to it even just 7 years ago, was a skill that was needed at the company at the time. And so they were generally just looking for people to come on and apply any sort of knowledge they had in the programming or digital space. And that's how I was sort of able to get my foot in the door. And it was really a team of people who are like, we don't really know how to do this. We don't really know how to sell, especially nonfiction, on a platform that's predominantly known for scripted and film. And also, how does this work globally? And how do we even how do we even make content that, in a way that is more mindful of a digital and all at once platform? So it was sort of like, let's just put all our heads together and figure out how we can do this with our various different perspectives, and mine being predominantly digital. And at the time, like, it was very much make it up as you go. I mean, we had a Google spreadsheet for all the pitches that came in. And there were so many. I shuddered. That spreadsheet exists somewhere in Google Drive that is like, I have nightmares about it. So we didn't even know how to properly take all these pitches, or how to really think about, launching these titles in a strategic way. We were just like, let's see if we can even buy them, if they make sense, if they work, and people will watch them. And when they did, and it was, there was a sign that there was an interest in reality and nonfiction programming. It was really exciting. And I think, every year we surprise ourselves about how much content we can make, and also how many people love it and watch it and engage with it. And, it's great. We're 50 people or something, Jen, in our department. And we have a lot of learnings. It allows us to focus and be really strategic. But I do a little bit miss those early days. It was like, let's just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Let's buy this thing that we really believe in. That is a cool concept. We have no idea if it's going to work, and just see if that's something that will actually, make sense on the surface. So yeah, it was an exciting time. It was a crazy time, but it was, yeah. Did I answer your question? Was that it? Yeah.
You totally answered the question.
Okay, good.
Do you think that your education at BU, though, sort of informed your decision to go to Netflix when it was a burgeoning platform, as opposed to, go into a global media player.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a cable network.
I mean, I think one thing that was always top of mind in comm, and so I actually was a public relations major and not film and TV, and I actually think that's why I had a focus on like technology and digital when it came to content versus maybe more traditional way in. Is there was such an emphasis in that focus on staying current and thinking about like emerging technology and like the global media landscape and sort of the power of emerging technology and staying relevant in getting a message out to a lot of people. And I did feel pretty focused on the idea that, you know, from that education that digital platform and OTT and digital distribution overall was going to be sort of like the future. And, you know, obviously also graduating in a time when like iTunes was a thing, downloading content was a thing, right? Downloading music legally and illegally was still something we were talking about. So that was always really top of mind. I think BU made that even more of a focus. And so rather than maybe focusing on like, I want to make this specific type of content in this specific way for this specific network, I was more like, what are the trends that are going to be most relevant basically 5-10 years from now?
Fascinating. Levy, I have a similar question for you, not about your 4 years spent at Boston University, but rather, you know, you came to Netflix from Bravo and from NBC. I guess what informed that decision? What made you take the risk? You obviously lead the group, but that wasn't always the case. So do you feel like you took a little bit of a chance?
Yeah, I would say I come from a very, you know, the opposite perspective than I think Olivia did, from a different, you know, generation era, whatever you want to call it. Where, you know, I came from the people that I worked for and worked with used to say things like, no one's ever going to watch TV on their computer and like stuff like that, which is just ridiculous, right? So when I had been at Bravo for 9 years, had done amazing things, a part of a pop culture phenomenon that's still going strong, and sort of to you know, the courage to leave that didn't come easily. And I remember, but I do remember feeling stuck in gear. And I do remember feeling like there was a Titanic headed for cable TV. And I just kept saying like, I don't want to be the dudes playing the violin on the Titanic when streaming takes it down. And I definitely had that in my mind. I remember when Chelsea Lately came out, I started like Googling and trying to figure out who ran on, you know, reality TV at Netflix, and I couldn't find a name. The only name I could find was Lisa Nishimura, but then I realized she really ran the documentaries department, and I was like, oh wait, they actually don't make reality TV at Netflix. And then Bella Bajaria was hired, and I said, oh shit, here we go, this is actually happening. And she was brought in to do unscripted and do scripted TV as well. And then I figured out how to get to meet her and get a contact to her. And the whole time though, I was pretty scared. I was scared to leave something that felt so sure, that the way Bravo did. And I was in a great position there. But I remember a friend of mine was like, there's a rocket ship to the moon, like get in the freaking rocket ship and quit talking about it. And so I just did. I just pulled the ripper and said, I'm going to give this a shot. A very good friend, an old colleague of mine, Brandon Reed, was hired, and he called me a week later and said, do you want to come do this? And I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. And never looked back. And 4.5 years later, I think, you know, Olivia would agree, we've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of success. It's been really stressful, but it's been exciting. And when you work for a company that empowers you to make big, risky decisions, you know, it pays off. And then also, even when it doesn't pay off, you sort of learn from it and you feel supported by it. So all in all, scary as shit, but the right choice.
So taking you have had phenomenal success. I mean, like crazy. The two of you have programmed some of the biggest shows on Netflix. It's like sort of mind blowing. When someone comes to you with an idea, what sort of informs your decision to say, I want that? Like, that's the one that makes sense.
I mean, there's a lot of different things that we look at. I think the coolest thing about programming for Netflix is the breadth of programming, the variety of what we can do. And even if you listen to the shows that were talked about earlier, like we can do Queer Eye and we can do Nailed It, but then we're also doing Love is Blind, and we're also doing F1 Drive to Survive, and then we're doing Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. Like the variety is a massive part of what we do. But I think first and foremost, as I think everyone listening to this knows, and we all know, like clutter in TV is real. Clutter in entertainment is real. Like all your options and all your choices of what you can be doing with your time is real. And so we are constantly looking for like, what is a super gettable, understandable hook, a loud, unexpected hook? Like, what is that just initial offering and entry point that is going to get somebody to show up? That's one. And then we really look at, is the concept or the world, is it relatable? Is it emotional? Is it authentic? Does it sort of speak to something that's happening in the zeitgeist? Like when you look at something like Too Hot to Handle, for instance, it really is a commentary on the sort of swipe left, swipe right, sort of insatiable nature of dating these days. And we turn that into a fun, frothy dating show, but at the core of it, there's like a human question. I think we're just always trying to find like what grounds an idea, but then makes it super loud, super fun, super noisy. And then at Netflix, we always say, how do we innovate on the familiar? So we take an idea like The Bachelor, let's say, and we give you Love is Blind. Or we take an idea like American Idol and we give you Rhythm and Flow. Like we're always just trying to push the genre forward and find sort of fresh and new ways in.
I see Ant taking notes on what he can start pitching you as we.
I'll be ready for my next pitch.
All right, Ant, you're almost up, I promise. But I think going back to Olivia for 1 second, like I think what's so interesting, and the people on the Zoom may not know, is that Netflix has this culture of empowering you, right? Of empowering their employees to make decisions that they deem to be best. And you don't necessarily have to get approval if you want to buy something from Jenn or from Brandon or any of the higher ups. You may get guilt tripped for buying something that doesn't work, but ultimately, like you are empowered to do that. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about, how that's in line with the company culture?
Sure. Well, I guess I would go back to, the thing we talk about a lot, especially if you get hired at Netflix, is our core values, of which there are several, but one of them is judgment. And I think one of the things that I have experienced consistently at Netflix is working with people whom I trust to always or mostly exercise really good judgment about what's best for the company, what's best for the show, what's best for our slate, and sort of thinking holistically about that, rather than coming from a perspective of, well, I like this show and this is something that I would watch, versus, no, I actually believe in this and believe it speaks to the things that, for example, Jenn was just talking about. And so, my feeling is, and this is my perspective, is we're empowered in that way because everybody is entrusted equally to consistently exercise that good judgment, whether it's in how we pick shows or how we oversee them. And that doesn't mean we don't, make mistakes, but it's also that when we do, we, learn from them and own up to them and we get better. And I think, we also have a culture on our team of mining for dissent and also the perspectives of everyone in the department. So we're not asking for approval, but it is a value of like, I always appreciate Jenn's perspective on a show, as well as most everybody on our team. So sending out shows to each other, and saying, what do you think of this? Knowing that everyone has the sort of same goal of making great television. The feedback that you're going to get is about how to make the show great. And if it just doesn't work, to encourage you to think about whether or not you should continue to pursue it. So I would say it's probably centered around that philosophy of everyone, having good judgment.
Well, that is a great segue in the vein of making mistakes to talking about Queer Eye.
I was wondering where that was going.
What?
I know where he's going. I know where he's going. He'll never let me live it down.
It's so predictable.
Oh my God. Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh God.
Before we even continue, what is going on with that massive Disney book under your elbow?
It's so big, honestly. It's so big. You got this for me. It was part of like that.
I know, but were you reading it before this?
No, I haven't had I don't have a place for it, and it's like a nice armrest.
Please carry on.
What else do you want to pick on?
We don't have enough time for that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. Onward. I see more people leaving the chat. Let's talk about Queer Eye. 8-time Emmy Award winning series. Jen, why do you think that a show like that, which was a reboot of an original, but obviously has grown so much from like what the original version was into a modern day version, why has it resonated with Netflix audiences?
Yeah. Oh man, it's a tough one to unpack. I think there are so many reasons. It is one of those lightning in a bottle moments in TV, I think, at least for my career. I think for TV in general. The time when we developed Queer Eye at Netflix and put it together, it was just, little did we know, it was just the tip of the iceberg of our country being in a very weird place, politically, emotionally, from a sociocultural standpoint. There's just so much going on and so much bubbling to the surface. And I think when Queer Eye came back, when we first spoke about it, we had this idea of painting the red states pink. Did I just freeze? Shit.
Yes.
Oh, I'm back.
You're
Okay.
back.
I'm back. So we had this idea of painting the red states pink. But we didn't want to approach it in a way that felt judgmental or preachy, or like we were taking a bunch of, liberal queer people from the coasts of wherever and thrusting them upon middle America to sort of fold their arms and judge them. And we really wanted to, sort of bring sort of lead with humanity. I think that was really driven by our showrunner, who sort of preaches that all the time. And so the timing for that, when we talk about ideas that feel zeitgeisty and that they are sort of the moment, Queer Eye felt so of the moment at that time. And then really all the pieces came together. I think we led with, it's all about casting the Fab Five, which we'll get into in a second, which just was magical. Really the way the Fab Five came together was just, it's like once in a lifetime cast. Don't tell them I said that. And then I think the producers and the vision that they had for it was so right on, like the ideas of how to expand the story, how to get to know the Fab Five in a way that you didn't in the original version. Like you didn't know if the original Fab Five were married or single or what. And we set out to humanize them and get you a layer deeper and tell these stories in a way about these queer men that you typically don't, these queer people that you typically don't get those stories told. And then it was all about the hero story. And we were so careful about the casting and finding stories that were fun and funny and aspirational and relatable and revealing. And you saw yourself in it or you sympathized with it. Like Queer Eye just reaches, like kind of punches through your chest and reaches into your heart in many different ways. But I would say the thing that really then made it punch through is it's all wrapped in fun. It's all wrapped in with like a wink and a nod and comedy and like clothes and a makeover, and they get a haircut, and then like someone's house gets remodeled. So I always, we always like to say, like, you got to wrap, and when it comes to entertainment and TV especially, you sort of have to wrap your broccoli in cheese, or or dip your broccoli in chocolate. Like, if you're going to give someone TV that is emotional and heartfelt, and there's like lessons and important work and stories being told, I think you have to sprinkle it with a lot of bubblegum and fun. And that's what Queer Eye did so beautifully. So you could sort of sit back, go on this journey, and be changed for it, and be enlightened, but also like laugh and smile, and like learn about French tucking and how to like properly slice a cucumber.
Avocado.
I didn't say avocado. I didn't say avocado, but like that. So I think those are all the little magical pieces. There's just, it was firing at all, on all cylinders from every one of those pillars. I shouldn't say was, is.
My takeaway from that was broccoli and chocolate, which I think Ant will probably be using on the upcoming season of Queer Eye.
Cheese was a lot more effective, and it's how I used to eat my broccoli with Cheese Whiz as a kid. It was the only way I would. So thank you for putting a spotlight on that delicious duo.
You are up. I think everyone on the Zoom has maybe a slightly different recollection of how you landed the coveted role, but I think this is a really good opportunity for you to sort of talk through that process from your lens. What happened? How'd you get here? Where did it start? Where are you now? Like, we want to hear it all, but I think what's most interesting, honestly, is the story of how you were cast on Queer Eye.
So do you want me to start with like right before the casting process, like how it began?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay. So a manager, a friend of mine who's also a manager in entertainment, or was at the time, I was having like coffee with him, and he was mentioning that Netflix was rebooting Queer Eye, and Jenn's tagline of wanting to turn the red states pink and wanting to have a diverse cast came up, and he started mentioning that he was like, you know, you love food, you love to cook. I think this is something that you should go for. And basically, I think the first person I contacted was actually Ted Allen, because weirdly, I was his personal assistant. Ted Allen is the OG food and wine expert in the first iteration of Queer Eye. And so I called him, he didn't answer. And then I called you, Ben. You were on a train from somewhere.
Real screen.
And I was like, yeah, so, because, okay, yeah, well, also just to give context to anybody who doesn't know, Ben was Eric Wattenberg's assistant. Eric Wattenberg was an agent at CAA, and he was Ted Allen's agent. So Ben and I were assistants together. I used to, I'll say it before you do, I was a really shitty assistant. I was the absolute worst.
Awful.
And I wasn't great. It's fine. And we would like plan our boss's schedules. And so we'd gotten to know each other. We became friends, and we would hang out. And basically, like, I think I found out like a week prior that you had become a junior agent at CAA. And so I called you and I was like, hey, did you hear about Queer Eye being rebooted? And you were like, yeah, of course, I'm totally aware. He did not. Like, you had absolutely no idea that it was a thing that was in existence. And you said that you would basically contact whoever and just try to like start the process. Got off the phone. Ted Allen called me. He had just left David Collins's office, who's the creator of Queer Eye from Scout Productions. And so Ted put in a word for me. You put in a word for me. And then I had an interview scheduled with Ali Capriotti Grant, who's part of the awesome casting team over at ITV. They're nominated yet again, very deservingly so, for casting, not of only of the Fab Five, but of, you know, the heroes every single season. And so the Zoom was scheduled to be for like 20 minutes, and it ended up lasting like an hour and a half. And I felt really good, because it's, as an out of work actor, I know what auditions are like when you like are barely done delivering your lines and they're like, okay, next, have a nice day. And so she contacted me back and asked me to come to LA for the audition process. And so I went in, and I do remember, there are so many anecdotes there. But I do remember the first moment that I was in a room with the other four, where it was basically, we were like in some hotel somewhere. I didn't know LA at the time, but we were like thrown into this conference room with like cameras everywhere. And it was like one of the first times that I'd met David Collins. And we were told that there was like another room with like a whole bunch of like execs sitting there kind of watching us. And they sat me down next to the other four Muppets. And they started showing like a slideshow of images, and we were asked to comment on them. And so I remember like, it was just this really bizarre moment of these four other humans that I'd never met before in my life. And we were like weirdly finishing each other's sentences. And it was just like, something just felt really nice. And I think that was the first time that I'd ever experienced what chemistry is. Like when there's like a chemistry test with people who are like auditioning for a show and you want to see how well they work off camera. Like that was the first time that I'd actually felt it. And I was like, wow, this is what that feeling is. Also, David Collins was running around maniacally behind us in like circles because he seemed to be getting like really excited. And then basically, oh, I will say, what did I want to add? I don't know. I feel like there's so many anecdotes, but I don't want to like take up all the time. I did weirdly get two things happened right before all of that went down. One of them was I went to get an iced coffee at one point because I really needed coffee and there wasn't any. And I got a ticket for jaywalking, but it was like during rush hour. So it was like a $400 ticket that I think I got reimbursed for, but I'm not really sure. And then the second thing, when we were in the holding room, in the waiting room for everybody, at one point the casting associates, Behan and Ali, would come out and they would like take one guy out. And then the person would come back like really emotional and sad and take their bags and leave. And we were like, holy shit, like this is like cutthroat. They're like this is like a reality show in itself. And there was a guy I met who was like so sweet and I got along with him really well. And they saw that we got along really well. He looked like if Harry Potter and Sherlock Holmes had a baby, that was him basically. And he had like a cape and a hat and everything. And they told him that he was leaving. And then Behan, the casting associate, came and she put her hand on my shoulder and she was like, Aunt. I was like, yeah. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I totally get it. It's fine. That's how these things work. Thank you so much. And so I went out and I went to text Ted to let him know that I didn't get it. And then as I'm on the phone with Ted, Behan runs out and she starts yelling because they were looking for me. And so I thought she was like telling me that it was time to go home, but she actually was just trying to like give me like bedside manner, and just like because she saw that I was upset that my buddy got cut. So gave me like some like weird like a phoenix rising moment, and I just like ran in there. So I thought I'd like lost the job, and that's when I realized like I actually really, really, really want this. I didn't let myself get too stressed about it. But that's when it kind of like dawned on me. So basically we went back, didn't receive any news. I have to give credit to Bobby. Somehow he got everyone's cell phone, which you're not supposed to get. I don't know who gave him all our numbers. And he started a Fab Five group chat before any of us were confirmed for the show, which was either really confident or just deeply delusional. But we've had that group chat since, and we still use it. He gets Google notifications on any of us, but that's neither here nor there. So I got sent back to New York, and I basically got a call from Ali saying, you didn't get the job, but you didn't not get the job. We're still waiting. We just want you to know that like we're rooting for you, but there's like people are just still trying to figure it out. Ben was calling every single day with like updates, and the news was always like, I'm just letting you know I have no news, but I called again. And I was invited to audition a second time against 4 other candidates for the food and wine position. And went in there and did my thing, and I made a pasta carbonara, which Tan could not have because he's Muslim and he couldn't have pork, but he was so sweet about it and pretended not to be grossed out by the sound and smells of searing bacon. And then I basically got back to New York, and I remember I was working a gallery job at the time, and there was this like awesome, like a French deco off of some ship, this big brass sideboard that was owned by Andy Warhol, and I was about to sell it. And the piece was like, it was like a $400,000 piece, and I was going to make a really great commission off of it. And then I saw that Rob Eric, one of the show creators, was calling. So I like stepped away, and I heard a lot of people on the line. I heard Levy's voice, and I heard a whole bunch of other people. Oh, I haven't like relived this in a while. And I think someone asked me to sit down. So I sat down in a really comfy Vladimir Kagan corkscrew chair. You can Google it, they're really chic. And they were like, I forget who it was, but someone was like, we just want you to know that every single person on this call would be thrilled to have you on Queer Eye. And yeah, that was like, it was just such a beautiful moment. And then I got the job, and then everything kind of changed very quickly.
Wow, you
And
really
then
didn't leave out any detail. You gave us every single, I mean, it's almost like we relived the 3 months that you went through that whole thing.
So for a minute, I forgot you were on the show. I was like, did he get it?
But I genuinely, like, how long, I don't know if was it 2 weeks that we waited? Was it 3 months that we waited? I felt like every night I like wasn't sleeping, just waiting for an answer. But I do have to say, like, I've never had a casting director or a casting associate reach out and be like, we just want you to know, like, this is still being considered. Usually you're in the dark, you don't know what the hell is going on. But I was still in communication with, like, you, Ben, you were calling them, borderline harassing them every single day. I had Ali texting me. It was definitely a really stressful time. But I remember, because it was sort of, it was a really important time for us, Ben, because it's like you had just become an agent. I think I was your first client, and I think this was like one of your first bigger deals. And we went from like assistants to basically being like agent and talent relationship, and kind of like working together since. And it's been just like some kind of analogy for a snowball that gets much bigger as it rolls down a hill. And that's basically what it's been like since the show happened like 3+ years ago.
Totally. Levy, at what point did you know, like, this is the Fab Five?
Yeah. We tortured Antoni, which was, it's sometimes the way it goes.
A smooth sea never made for a skilled sailor, Levy.
That's right. There you go. I like it. I think we knew. It's funny. I think back to all of them, and like the conversations we had about each one, and what we loved about them and what we didn't, and what we wondered about each one of them, because they all have a thing that you wonder about. And it's funny to see how those things played out now. I mean, we, as Ant knows, like, we were confident with the 4, and although there were still some question marks, but had a question mark around Ant, and I think that around the chef role. And I think that as I relive it, and hearing you, Ant, remind me that you were an out of work actor at the time. When Ant was first in his audition, knowing you so well now and seeing what you do now, when he was first in his audition, I think there were still you still sort of had some of your actor tendencies. And so we were all kind of going like, and he's more calm and subdued than the other guys, which, by the way, is a perfect thing in the balance and all of that. A lot of them were such big over personalities. And as you get to know Ant in a group, Ant just kind of does this because he's like, all right, I'll let all these other people shine, and I'm just going to sit here and wait my turn, which makes him an admirable human. But in audition process, sometimes it's difficult. But I think, so in the audition, I felt like I was seeing a little bit of actor Antoni. And then when we got him in the kitchen and got him with the rest of the guys, who he was just like shined through, and his authentic self, and you just saw his passion and by the way, to be a guy who's not like a trained chef, to sit and make a carbonara, like, that's ballsy. That's not an easy thing to make. And he was just with his like towel over his shoulder from like day one. He just was himself. And that's what we were looking for. And we knew then that he was the guy. I think I also knew when I then had a conversation with you did leave out that detail. You and I talked on the phone, I hadn't done that with anybody else, but it was like sort of our last steps to confirm it was you. And he went into such great detail about how he makes tuna salad. Like very passionate and obsessive over, he uses olive oil and not mayonnaise, and he puts peas in it. And I was
Sorry,
like,
tiny
this
bit of
guy
mayo,
still talking
tiny
about
bit of
making
mayo.
well, tiny bit of mayo, excuse me. I was like, is this guy still talking with like love and admiration for making the perfect tuna salad? I was like, yep, I think he's the one. So really for me, it was like when I saw the real Antoni like bust through, I knew, and we all knew. And the producers, we all knew there was all these magical things about him. They also kept saying, you don't understand how gorgeous this guy is. Like, are you crazy that we're even having this conversation around this guy? I was like, I have eyes, I get it. But that's when it really solidified, is when I like saw his truth bust through.
I think the
But I
moral
think
of that story is like, you know, the power of Netflix is not only the stories that you tell, but it's also who tells them, right? And I think the reason why, you know, that show has seen so much success is because of those boys and how those boys are able to tell the stories of the heroes, and like that is such an unbelievable case study. So all right, we are quickly running out of time, so I have two more questions. One's for Ant, which is, Ant, you know, we're talking here and we're almost done talking about the power of Netflix. And so how do you feel like, you know, from your perspective, the success of the show and Queer Eye and the platform of Netflix, how has that propelled the rest of your business? Where were you, you know, before the show, and where are you today, and what does the future look like?
He was selling very expensive art. I didn't know that, but, but okay. Sorry.
You can keep this as brief as you want, because I have one more question after this.
Okay.
Well, yeah, good luck with that. Brevity is not my strong suit. I mean, yeah, my life was completely different. I was working a classic, you know, 9 to 6 job in a gallery because I was sort of a little tired of just like auditioning all the time and not necessarily getting anything, or just like small bit roles here and there. And since then, it's completely changed. Food was always something that was kind of a private thing. I never thought that I would pursue it in a professional capacity, and I never put that like pressure on myself. It's also why I still refer to myself as a home cook and not a chef, because chefs are, you know, go through the culinary school, or training in a restaurant at the very least. But I feel like, I mean, it's just like everything, every single thing has changed. My life before Queer Eye, everything was, all the energy was outgoing. It was me trying to get a job, figuring out casting directors and everything. And since the show came out, like not even 3 weeks later, suddenly all the energy was incoming. And I was forced to start making decisions, which is also a thing that I hate to do. I do not like making decisions. I get overwhelmed with them. And so I kind of had to adapt. My confidence level shot up, I think, like exponentially. And I think it was forced to be able to adapt to having all the love and also like some of the criticism as well that kind of came with the beginning, based like specifically on like the simplicity of my dishes, for example, which some people thought that was like a reflection of my skill set. So it's been like an exponential growth curve of kind of learning. But as I kind of gained more confidence, especially with having Netflix as a home and having that global reach, it's sort of like, well, what other kind of stories do I want to tell? You know, there are other things that I'm working on that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, that Ben, you even called me 5 minutes before the call that I'm not going to talk about. But for example, like it was mentioned, you know, the rom-com with Kenya Barris, Girls and Boys, that was something that I think there's always been a lot of confusion when people meet me, where it's sort of like, oh, like, wait, you dated girls and then you dated guys, you don't refer to yourself as gay, you refer to yourself as fluid. I always felt like I was kind of in my own little box, and I didn't know too many people like that. And I didn't, you know, I didn't see that portrayed in media, you know, with Will and Grace and with the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, for example. And I'm a lover of rom-coms, and I'm a romantic at heart, always have been, and I love love. So it's sort of like, no, let's do a rom-com about fluidity and like how that presents itself and all the little quirks that come with it. as well as some other things. And, you know, getting into Poland, for example, and like everything that's going on out there, Netflix is also a massive advocate for equality. And Poland is a place right now that is really struggling with that, with the super right-wing government. And so I want to get involved in the content and the sort of like the documentaries and the shows that they're putting out there. They're not afraid to go there and really like push that envelope and really, you know, make a statement. The fact that Netflix has decided to put gigantic billboards of me and Tan holding on to each other like we're freaking Siamese twins, hugging each other, saying like love is love, and you know, the cities in Poland is like, that's mind-blowing to me. And I think that that's incredibly powerful, and I feel like I have a responsibility to kind of continue that conversation, or to be part of it at the very least, in whatever capacity that is.
Right.
So I struck gold with Netflix, and you know, they're my mom and dad.
But I think it's fair to say too that like beyond sort of the multiple shows that, you know, you are working on with Netflix, like the business, your business, the books, the endorsements, the, you know, the speaking engagements, everything that has come of it, like it's all because the power of that platform.
None of it would have been possible without Queer Eye and without Netflix. Like absolutely none of it. The fact that they give us the freedom, the fact that they allow me to pitch, maybe you've heard a few, the fact that they leave the door open and give me that space to kind of throw ideas, and sometimes they're great and sometimes they're shit, and they're always honest about it. And it's like I get to kind of continue learning and to be a student with them. And so it's awesome.
Well, I have one last question, and then I think we probably are going to run out of time. But it's a question that I think everyone on the Zoom, or whoever's left on the Zoom, wants to know, which is, there are a lot of students here. You know, what's one piece of advice that you would probably give them as soon to be graduates entering the workforce? And I guess, Levy, we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about it, and I even saw some questions in the Q&A about how do you sort of maintain your authenticity in TV in general. And I think that is the hardest thing to do, and the most important thing. I think something I attribute my success to is people know if you're full of shit and they'll sniff it out real quick. And I think the tolerance for that has continued to dwindle. You know, we used to be an industry of brilliant assholes. Sorry, I keep cussing. Forgive me. We used to be an industry of brilliant jerks, I'll say. And there's still plenty of brilliant jerks out there. But again, the tolerance for that is dwindling. And I think you don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be an asshole to be successful in this business. You have to be determined. You have to stand by what you want. You have to know what you want. You have to be confident. You can't be run over, but you don't have to belittle people or make people feel like shit. And you don't have to sort of hide who you really are. I think you have, you know, find what you're passionate about and lean into it, and don't be afraid to let other people know you're passionate about it. This business is hard. It's exhausting. There's big egos. There's a lot of money at stake. No one likes to fail in this business. And so you have to build trust with the people around you. And a great way to build trust is for them to know that you are passionate and believe in what you're trying to accomplish, or what you're selling, or what you're making. So if folks know that you have like an authentic passion for what you're doing, they'll jump off a bridge with you. So be authentic, build trust, make friends early, and be passionate. Don't be afraid don't let anyone dim your shine.
Liv?
Yeah, I would say sort of alongside what Jen said is part of being your authentic self is also being vulnerable and acknowledging where your weaknesses are and when you make mistakes, and not shying away from that. And I think the more you can own and be upfront with where you go wrong or what you don't know, the more people will be inclined to help you and teach you, and also be upfront around where they make mistakes. And if you can get in the habit of putting your sort of ego aside, and you can be around people who also do that and help you do that and support you through that, the rate at which you'll grow and become better, I think will astound you. That has been the biggest, I think, learning for me is, yeah, just not being afraid to be vulnerable, and finding people who are receptive to that and encouraging of that and who do the same. And if you find that you're in a place where people take advantage of that, run the other direction.
Good advice,
And you think
Thanks.
you can answer the question in 3 minutes?
That is really good advice. I don't know, but we'll try. I love what Olivia touched on. Like, if you're not, like, the awareness of the fact that you're not good at something, I think is incredibly important. It's like the difference between knowing your strong suits and your weaknesses. And once you're aware of your weaknesses, surround yourself by people who can sort of like nurture that change and that growth. I'm in a position now where, like, I have to ask for help on a daily basis to 100 different people multiple times a day. And it was very humbling at first and really difficult, because sometimes you have to trust people that you don't necessarily know. But I think it's more of like a broad strokes thing, not just for post-graduation, but it's kind of like in life. Like, someone told me early on, like, always surround yourself by people who are smarter, more charming, more intelligent, more educated than you, and just like through some kind of like a weird psychological osmosis, hopefully you'll get some of it too. And if you surround yourself by people, to Levy's point, who are just like super passionate and inspired, there's something very infectious about that. There's something that's extremely attractive, and hopefully it like triggers something in you to want to pursue that as well. And also sharing your passion is something that's incredibly important as well. My psychic was telling me all about it. It's the idea of like manifesting it, but it's true. It's like, and Ben, I was telling you this as well, and this is something that we've worked on as well. It's like, sometimes I'll have an idea and I decide to share it with you like 3 months later, and you're like, where the hell did this come from? I didn't know you were interested in underwater basket weaving. And it's sort of like, no, I've been thinking about this for a long time. But like, share those things with people, find like-minded people, find like your tribe. It's something we talk a lot about in the LGBTQIA plus community, but I think there is a universality there, that can be helpful to a lot of people. Just surround yourself by people who inspire you, and then you'll figure out your own path from there.
That's awesome advice from everybody, and I'm surprised.
And it took me 2.5 minutes, just saying.
Just in the nick of time. I just want to thank you three for taking the time. You're so busy. You are so important. You, well, two of you are.
That's the first time I'm ever told I'm important.
I said two of you. No, this has been so helpful and so meaningful, and I hope that everyone listening and watching at least had a nugget of takeaway and can use that in whatever it is that they want to do. So thank you. Again, I really appreciate it. And I think with that, we're out of time. So, onward. But thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.